Hannah Marshall.
A pleasant good afternoon to everyone. Before I continue with my speech, I would just like to say at some point that the first speaker said on the other side. You said that it is a right and appropriation to make children. But this debate is not about persons' right to have children. It's about the privilege to rear and develop young minds, body and soul, Mr. Chairman, I stand in full support of my colleagues to propose the motion that without a doubt, parenthood should be considered a privilege and not a right. Mr. Chairman, firstly, I want to make an important distinction between a privilege and a right. A person can be thrown out of a country that he or she is privileged to visit, but cannot be thrown out of a country, but cannot be thrown out of his own country of birth. For this reason, many convicted criminals are ultimately deported to their country of birth after serving their time. This is an essential difference between a privilege and a right. Rights cannot be removed on any ground of suspicion based on information presented in Article 9 of the United Nations Declaration of Human Rights 1999. Anyone whose rights and fundamental freedoms are allegedly violated has the right to redress in a court of law of any compensation due. So you see, even on allegation, violation of rights can be challenged in a court of law. With a privilege, on the other hand, no such challenges can stand. Mr. Chairman, with rights according to the famous actor Denzel Washington in the movie Training Day, and I quote, "It is not what you know, but what you can prove," end of quote. This is in essence the submission of our DPP, Mr. Christopher Nelson, when he commented on the recent teacher incident with a primary school teacher at the start of Lobby 2009. Mr. Chairman, allow me to show you what happens when parenthood is considered a right and not a privilege. I am sure that some of you would have heard on the radio about a recent incident which occurred during the month of September 2009. A parent from St. Patrick's, right here in Grenada, gave her child $4 to give a teacher for an activity at school. The child in hunger and desperation, Mr. Chairman, spent that money to buy something to eat. But it gets worse. Do you know what that mother did, Mr. Chairman? That mother poured from a kettle boiling water on the hand of that child. Oh God. The parent, knowing that in Grenada parenting is considered a right, called a local radio station and lambasted the Ministry of Social Development and the Child Welfare Authority for trying to protect that child. Mr. Chairman, is that right? Mr. Chairman, because parenthood is considered as a right and not a privilege, children are not instantly removed from abusive homes. Why? Because remember, it is not what you know, but what you can prove. According to Ms. Lauren Victor of the Ministry of Social Development, acceptance.
Because the woman poured a boiling hot kettle of water on her child does not mean that she does not have the rights of parenthood. She simply abused her rights, but it does not mean that parenthood was not a right in the first place.
Mr. Chairman, we cannot play with a child's life. This is not lotto. You can't, with lotto you can go and lose, but you cannot gamble with the life of a child. You cannot. Mr. Chairman, according to Ms. Lauren Victor of the Ministry of Social Development, some of these children eventually end up in the foster homes and institutions, but sometimes not before a repair of the damage is done. Mr. Chairman, there is presently in circulation a poem sent out by the Blue Ribbon Society in support of the organization Prevent Child Abuse in America in 1972. It is about a poem, a 3-year-old girl called Sarah, who was abused by her parents. The poem speaks of Sarah being left alone at home with nothing to eat, being verbally abused by her mother when she comes home in the evening, and being physically abused by her alcoholic father when he comes home at night. But sadly, Mr. Chairman, the poem ends with these words. My name is Sarah, and I am but 3. Tonight, you know what? My daddy murdered me. Ladies and gentlemen, meet Sarah. My worthy opponent, meet Sarah. See and see very clear. Mr. Chairman, please forgive me for my emotional state, but this is a very sad moment for me. But please, still allow me to continue with my speech. This poem quite aptly summarizes the things that children have to undergo when parents consider their rights. Mr. Chairman, as proponents of the mood, we say that considering parenthood as a right prolongs abuse, and in some instances, it leads to death. As you can see, in an interview held with Ms. Laura Victor, it was revealed that the ministry is currently working with parenting partners of the OECS to get laws passed to ensure that parenting is considered a privilege and not a right. According to Ms. Victor, social workers are looking forward to that day when they can provide mandatory assistance for protection and assistance for these children, conduct investigation without any hindrance, and remove children in any light of any suspicion of abuse. Mr. Chairman, how many more Sarahs do we want? How many more like Sarah will die before we get up and decide once and for all consider parenthood as a privilege and not a right? Audience, Mr. Chairman, the media, listen to me and listen very carefully. Children are too precious to be created without making a careful, conscious decision about them. Parenthood shouldn't be automatic or accidental, and it should not certainly be taken lightly. Mr. Chairman, I am sure, matter of fact, I am positive that I convinced each and every one of you here today that parenthood should be considered a privilege and not a right. I thank you.